Hey, welcome back to Livin MN Outdoors, and thanks for joining us for Get Livin' in the Word. Today we're going to be talking about where your focus and trust is during conflict. A lot of times in life we have problems come up, issues arise, and we focus on the problem or the issue we're having. And when you put focus on something, it magnifies that. It makes it bigger. And then when we have problems and issues, we like to bring them up to other people. Maybe we're whining about them, complaining about them, and they grow bigger because now we've brought that problem and issue on somebody else. But there's several stories in the Bible that I want to talk about where people had problems or issues arise, but they didn't focus on the problem or the issues. They focused on God and they trusted on God. The first guy I want to talk about is Daniel. Daniel had a huge problem arise. He disobeyed the king's orders, and he continued praying and worshiping his God, our God. He was faithful to the one true God, and because of that, the king and the king's rulers were going to throw Daniel into the lion's den. Well, for most people that's a death sentence. But because Daniel put his focus and his trust in God, God protected him through that problem, and he came out unscathed, completely fine. Now, another group of guys I want to talk about is Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Same thing. They had problems with the king. The king was going to throw them into a fiery furnace. And yet again, they didn't focus on their problem. They didn't whine and complain about it. They focused and trusted in God to save them from their issue. They prayed to God, they trusted that He'd save them. They were thrown into the fiery furnace, and God sent an angel to rescue them, protected them through the flames. That's not normal. Normal people get thrown into a furnace, boom, turn to ash. But they were focusing and trusting on God, and God delivered them from their troubles. So we're going to have Rachel read a scripture from the book of Daniel, talking about Daniel in the lion's den. So I believe the scripture is Daniel 6:23. So if you could read that for us.
The king was overjoyed and gave orders to lift Daniel out of the den. And when Daniel was lifted from the den, no wound was found on him because he trusted in his God.
So Daniel was thrown into the lion's den. The next day the king went there, asked for Daniel to be brought out. No wounds were found on Daniel. And it says because he trusted in his God. So now we're going to read Daniel chapter 3 verse
28.
Daniel chapter 3 verse 28.
Nebuchadnezzar said, "Praise be to the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who has sent his angel and rescued his servants. They trusted in him and defied the king's command and were willing to give up their lives rather than serve or worship any god except their own."
It says they were delivered from the furnace because they trusted in him. That him is God. They trusted and focused on God through their times of trouble, and they came out completely unscathed. So, my challenge for you this week is, if you have a problem arise, an issue comes up, what's your focus going to be on? Is it going to be on that problem, that issue? Or are you going to put your focus and trust in God and rely on Him to help you through that problem? Well guys, I hope you enjoyed today's lesson. Please hit that like button, consider subscribing, and we hope to see you on the next episode. And if you're not doing so, get on out there and get living.